Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening the books on a figure who really kind of throws people off when you think about ultra wealth, George Kaiser.
Right. As of 2025, he's sitting on, $15.4 billion, an empire built from oil and banking. That's serious money.
It really is. And, the standard narrative for someone with that kind of fortune, it involves a certain level of, performance art, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You expect the island purchases, the private space companies, maybe a super yacht the size of a small cruise ship. It's almost like a script they're supposed to follow.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. The sources really hammer home. Kaiser just doesn't play that game at all.
No, he lives quietly. In Tulsa. Drives a normal car, apparently.
And he actively, rejects the symbols. No super yacht, no private jet. Instead of spending on himself, he funnels that incredible capital into something very specific.
And some things, let's be honest, profoundly unglamorous.
Right. Breaking the cycle of poverty through early childhood education. It's this huge focus for him.
Which is, it's a strategy that comes straight from his core philosophy. So our mission today is to really dig into that unconventional choice.
Yeah, what's driving this? What's his definition of success, really? What does he understand about money and its power that makes him turn away from all that status stuff?
And instead focus on these incredibly long-term educational goals. It's fascinating.
Okay, let's try and unpack that core financial mindset first. That's section 1 for us. For most people, maybe especially in the media, a number like $15 billion, it's a scoreboard, right? The ultimate status symbol.
But Kaiser seems to see money completely differently. It's not about his personal score. It's about leverage. Purely leverage to make an impact.
And what's really interesting is where that view comes from. It's not something he just decided on later in life, is it?
No, not at all. It seems deeply rooted in his family history. He's apparently quite open about attributing his success less to personal genius and more to what he calls luck of birth.
He specifically uses the phrase largely an accident of birth, doesn't he?
He does. And you have to remember the context. His parents were German Jews who managed to escape the Nazis, fled to Oklahoma, and rebuilt. He inherited a business.
That's a huge head start. He acknowledges that directly.
Precisely. And recognizing that privilege, that it was somewhat circumstantial, seems to have created this profound sense of moral obligation to give back.
It's like if he didn't earn every single cent through sheer grit alone, then the duty to use it for good becomes almost absolute for him.
Yeah. The sources even describe his wealth almost like a public trust that just happens to be legally private, a really different way of thinking.
Which explains those stark contrasts in his lifestyle. Owning a private jet for him isn't a perk. It's actually inefficient. A moral liability almost.
He's always thinking about ROI, return on investment, but he totally reframes the return part.
He has this powerful analogy, right?
Yeah.
About spending versus investing.
Exactly. $1 spent on, say, adding another deck to your yacht. Well, it gives you a brief thrill, maybe a nice memory, but then the value just evaporates. It's consumed. Gone.
But that same dollar, if you invest it in the young child's education.
Now that's different. That dollar isn't consumed. It becomes a multiplier. It starts ripples.
Ripples that last for decades, changing that child's life path, their future employment, easing burdens on their family, their community.
He figured out that the highest ROI isn't always in the stock market. Sometimes it's investing deeply in human potential right at the start.
It really forces you to ask, doesn't it? Are your resources just feeding your ego, or are they actually building something bigger?
That's a great way to put it. But okay, to have that kind of philanthropic leverage, you first need the capital. Serious capital.
Good point. So where did the $15 billion actually come from? Let's get into section 2. The engine behind the wealth. It wasn't built in Silicon Valley.
No, definitely not. He built it using, pretty old school methods.
Yeah.
Patience, discipline, and a really contrarian mindset in very traditional industries, oil and banking.
He inherited the family oil business, Kaiser Francis Oil, back in 1969. What was his core strategy there?
Stay private. Stay lean. That was key.
And staying private, what did that actually let him do that his public competitors couldn't?
Oh, it gave him crucial advantages. Time, mainly. And freedom from quarterly earnings pressure.
Right. Oil is famous for those wild boom and bust cycles.
Exactly. So when the market tanked, his publicly traded rivals often had to sell off valuable assets cheap just to satisfy Wall Street or manage debt.
Yeah.
Kaiser didn't have that pressure.
So he could wait out the storm. And maybe even buy assets when they were cheap.
Precisely. He could afford to be patient, think in decades, not quarters. That insulation from public market demands was a massive competitive edge.
Okay, that makes sense for oil. But maybe his gutsiest move was in banking, right? During the savings and loan crisis in the early 90s.
Oh, absolutely. Acquiring the Bank of Oklahoma, BOK Financial, that was a big one.
And at the time, BOK was seen as what, toxic waste?
Pretty much, yeah. The whole S&L sector was melting down because of bad loans and deregulation. Thousands of institutions failed. BOK itself was seized by federal regulators in 1990.
So most investors were running screaming from anything associated with it.
Completely. It looked like a guaranteed money pit, tangled in regulations, pure risk.
And Kaiser steps in, sees something others don't.
He did. He bought a controlling stake right when fear was at its absolute peak. Classic contrarianism.
And then what? Just patiently rebuilt it.
Patiently rebuilt it over decades, turned that toxic asset into this major regional bank, BOK Financial, with, over $50 billion in assets now.
Wow. It's the ultimate example of that strategy.
Yeah.
Find value when everyone else is panicking. By fear, sell greed, essentially.
It really is. But it also highlights that interesting paradox we need to touch on.
You mean where the money comes from?
Exactly. His fortune is built on oil extraction and traditional banking. Industries that, let's be fair, often draw criticism for their environmental or social impacts.
Right. They're not always seen as inherently positive forces.
Yet he takes the profits generated by these, sometimes controversial engines and channels them directly into solving systemic problems. Poverty, lack of education.
So the wealth originates from extraction, but its purpose becomes construction, rebuilding.
It's a fascinating tension. He seems to be trying to use the tools of the existing system to fundamentally improve it from within.
Okay, so he's got this massive capital stream fueled by oil and banking. Let's follow the money now. Where exactly does it go?
Right, because when billionaires give, it's often to, big universities, museums, things like that, visible stuff.
Prestige projects. But Kaiser's focus, as we said, is different. That brings us to Section 3, his upstream investment in early education.
Yeah, while some billionaires are looking at Mars or cracking artificial general intelligence, Kaiser's putting his resources into programs like Tulsa Educare.
It's deliberately not flashy, is it? Focusing on kids as young as 6 weeks old, mostly from low-income backgrounds.
It's about as far from glamour as you can get. Tulsa Educare serves, over 2,400 kids? It's substantial.
And the core idea isn't just charity, right? It's strategy. It's about prevention.
Absolutely. He's not trying to fix problems downstream. When people are already struggling as adults, he's investing way upstream to try and prevent those problems from ever taking root.
His financial brain meets his moral compass.
Precisely. And the data backs him up. There's strong evidence that high-quality early childhood education, especially for kids facing disadvantages, has huge long-term payoffs.
Like what specifically?
Higher graduation rates, better job prospects later in life, lower rates of crime. It just sets them on a completely different trajectory.
So Kaiser sees it as efficiency, breaking the cycle of poverty before it gets going.
Exactly. It's not just about feeling good. It's about the most effective, long-term intervention. He's playing the long game.
Buying a generational shift, not just a temporary fix. Looking at a return that might not fully materialize for 20, 30 years.
Which says a lot about his discipline, doesn't it? Resisting that urge for short-term wins or public applause.
Yeah, both in business and philanthropy.
Yeah.
He's planting trees whose shade he might never sit in, prioritizing systems change over quick headlines. That takes real restraint.
Especially for someone who could have instant gratification on almost any level.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, this whole idea of the power of silence and restraint in how he operates.
Right. In a world obsessed with billionaire visibility, think Musk, Bezos Kaiser is almost invisible.
He rarely gives interviews, lives quietly in Tulsa, avoids the spotlight.
And that restraint seems fundamental. He reportedly still works incredibly hard, like 70 hours a week, splitting time between the business empire and his foundation, the GKFF.
And the idea is that every dollar not spent on personal luxury, on excess,
is a dollar that can be invested in opportunity for someone else. He sees it as a direct trade-off, an opportunity cost he's just not willing to pay for his own comfort.
That's a really powerful way to view wealth. Not what can I afford, but what impact is lost if I buy this.
But it's not just about writing checks quietly. How does this translate into real influence? What's the mechanism?
This is where the sources talk about something they call the double impact loop. It sounds quite strategic.
It is. It's this really clever self-reinforcing cycle. Step 1. The wealth from oil and banking flows into the philanthropy, the GKFF.
Okay, funding the education initiatives and other community projects.
Right. Then step 2. That philanthropy strengthens the community. Better education leads to a stronger workforce, more stable families, a healthier social fabric in Tulsa.
And how does that loop back to benefit his businesses?
Well, that's step 3. A stronger, more stable, better educated community creates a more resilient economic environment.
I see. Less crime, maybe more local spending, a more skilled labor pool for his companies, including the bank, BOK Financial.
Exactly. So by investing in the community's health, he indirectly shores up the long-term stability and success of his own business interests. It all feeds back.
That's actually quite brilliant. His power works quietly, systemically. Influence measured by deep ripples, not loud splashes.
Yeah, his biggest luxury, you could argue, isn't a material thing at all. It's the mental space and the discipline to focus on shaping that long-term future without needing the constant validation of headlines.
He demonstrates that sometimes the quietest players build the most enduring structures because they're focused on the outcome, not the applause.
Exactly right. Efficiency over ego.
So if we try to synthesize all this, what's the core lesson from George Kaiser?
I think fundamentally, he forces a complete rethink of what wealth is for. He shifts the definition away from personal consumption towards contribution and enablement.
Success isn't about what he owns, but about what he makes possible for others.
Yeah. Money, power, influence. For him, they're just tools. Neutral tools. In the wrong hands, or hands driven by vanity, they just build bigger monuments to the self that eventually crumble.
But in his hands, guided by this sense of obligation, they're being used to try and build stronger foundations for the future.
And we do have to circle back just briefly to that core tension. Using wealth from potentially problematic industries,
Like oil and banking.
to fund solutions like education and poverty reduction. His life is this ongoing attempt to reconcile that, to use the fruits of an imperfect system to try and fix the flaws within that system.
It's a complex legacy for sure.
Definitely. But it leaves us with a really powerful takeaway, regardless of our own financial situation. Kaiser's life suggests that luxury is fleeting. That yacht eventually gets old.
But opportunity, that multiplies. Investing in a child's potential can echo for generations, long after we're gone.
So the final question he kind of poses to all of us, to you listening, is based on his own life choices. What will you do with the resources you have?
Whether it's money or time or skills.
Right. Will the focus be on short-term gain, personal comfort, maybe luxury, or will you choose to invest in something that builds a longer-lasting legacy?